My younger sister announced her pregnancy at my divorce dinner, and my family expected me to smile through it. I think one of the loneliest feelings in the world is realizing your pain makes other people uncomfortable. Because once that happens, they start rushing you to move on before you're emotionally ready. And honestly, that's exactly what happened after my divorce. What was supposed to be a supportive family dinner turned into the moment I finally realized how invisible my feelings had quietly become inside my own family. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning. 15 years of marriage ended in less than 20 minutes inside a cold courthouse office. No dramatic screaming, no emotional speech, just signatures, silence, and two exhausted people who no longer knew how to love each other properly. By the time I got home, I felt emotionally hollow. Not devastated exactly, just numb. My mother called an hour later. "We're doing family dinner Sunday," she announced gently. "You shouldn't be alone right now." Honestly, part of me appreciated it. The last few months had been brutal. Lawyers, paperwork, friends quietly choosing sides. The humiliation of explaining to people why your marriage failed after spending years pretending everything was okay. So yes, a quiet family dinner sounded comforting. At least I thought it would be. Sunday evening, I arrived at my parents' house already emotionally drained. The second I walked in, my mother hugged me too tightly, like I might break apart physically if she let go. "You look thin," she whispered worriedly. I forced a small smile. "Divorce diet," she laughed awkwardly. The kind people do when they don't know whether they're allowed to laugh anymore. The whole house felt like that, honestly. Careful, uncomfortable. Everyone kept speaking softer around me, watching me too closely. My older brother Mark kept trying to refill my wine glass every 10 minutes. My father avoided mentioning anything emotional entirely. And my younger sister Lily, she was acting strangely distracted, checking her phone constantly, barely touching food, looking nervous every few minutes. At first, I assumed she felt awkward because of me. Everyone did. Divorce changes family energy in weird ways. Suddenly, people don't know how to talk around you without accidentally mentioning marriage. Dinner started normally enough. Small talk, work updates, random family gossip. And honestly, for the first time in weeks, I started relaxing slightly. Then halfway through dinner, Lily suddenly put down her fork. "I actually have news," she announced quietly. The entire table looked at her immediately. And honestly, the timing felt strange. My mother blinked in confusion. "What kind of news?" Lily looked nervous suddenly, then emotional. "I'm pregnant." Silence. Not shocked silence exactly. More like emotional whiplash. Then instantly, everyone exploded with excitement. My mother started crying. My father stood up laughing. Mark shouted, "No way!" And just like that, the entire emotional focus of the room shifted completely. I sat there frozen, holding my wine glass while everyone celebrated around me. Lily was crying happily now. My mother hugged her. My father kept asking questions. And honestly, I didn't know what emotion I was supposed to have. Because logically, this was wonderful news. But emotionally, the timing felt like someone quietly erased me from my own grief. Then suddenly, my mother looked toward me, smiling brightly. "Natalie, say something." Every face at the table turned toward me instantly, waiting. I forced a smile so hard my cheeks physically hurt. "Oh my God," I said softly. "That's amazing." And honestly, part of me meant it. But another part of me wanted to disappear completely. Because somehow, my divorce dinner had become a pregnancy celebration within less than 5 minutes. The rest of the night felt surreal. Everyone talked about baby names, nurseries, future holidays. Meanwhile, I quietly sat there drinking wine while feeling myself emotionally disappear further into the background. At one point, my father actually said, "Well, this family needed some happy news." That sentence hit me harder than anyone realized. Because suddenly, my pain felt like something ruining the atmosphere. Something everyone was relieved to move past. Then came the moment that completely broke me. My mother looked at Lily smiling emotionally and said, "Finally, something positive after all this sadness." All this sadness. I knew she meant the divorce. I knew she didn't mean harm. But honestly, hearing my entire life collapse described like an exhausting mood everyone wanted over with hurt more than I can explain. I quietly excused myself to the bathroom before anyone noticed tears forming in my eyes. The second the door closed behind me, I started crying silently. Not because Lily was pregnant, never because of that, but because for the first time in my life, I truly felt emotionally inconvenient to my own family. Then a soft knock came at the bathroom door. "Natalie?" Lily whispered carefully. I wiped my face quickly. "Yeah?" A long pause followed. Then quietly, almost guiltily, she admitted, "I didn't know they were making tonight about me, too." That sentence immediately made me realize something important. Maybe Lily wasn't the only person carrying complicated feelings into this dinner. Lily finally reveals why she chose that night to announce her pregnancy, and Natalie realizes years of hidden sibling tension may have quietly shaped their entire relationship. I stared at the bathroom door for a few seconds before finally unlocking it. Lily stood there looking nervous. Not defensive, not excited anymore, just guilty. "I'm sorry," she whispered immediately. Honestly, that caught me off guard, because part of me had already prepared myself to hear excuses. Instead, she looked like someone who regretted something the second it happened. "You couldn't wait one night?" I asked quietly. The second the words left my mouth, Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to," she admitted softly. That answer confused me immediately. "What does that mean?" Lily glanced toward the dining room nervously before stepping inside the bathroom and closing the door behind her. Then she said something I genuinely wasn't expecting. "Mom already knew." I froze. "What?" She found out last week. My stomach tightened instantly, and suddenly, the entire evening started feeling different. The strange tension, my mother acting overly emotional, the weird energy at dinner. "You're saying Mom planned this?" I whispered. Lily looked uncomfortable immediately. "Not exactly. That usually means yes." "She thought the news might lift the mood," Lily admitted carefully. For a second, I genuinely couldn't speak. Lift the mood? Like my divorce was bad weather everyone needed relief from. I laughed softly in disbelief. Not because it was funny, because honestly it hurt too much to react normally. "She seriously thought your pregnancy announcement would help my divorce dinner?" Lily looked miserable now. "I told her it was a bad idea." I stared at her. "Then why did you do it?" That question visibly hit harder, because suddenly this wasn't just about dinner anymore. There was something else underneath all of this. Lily crossed her arms tightly before finally admitting, "Because for once, I didn't want my life to stay paused waiting for everyone else's crisis to end." The room went completely silent. That sentence caught me so off guard I forgot to even feel angry for a second. "What?" Lily looked down at the floor. Then quietly, she said the one thing I never expected to hear from my younger sister. "Everything in this family has revolved around your marriage problems for over a year." I physically stepped back slightly, because honestly, I had never viewed it that way. The divorce consumed my life, but suddenly, I realized everyone else had been emotionally orbiting around it too. Family gatherings became awkward. Conversations became careful. Plans got canceled constantly because I was having a hard week. And maybe without realizing it, everyone started emotionally organizing themselves around my pain. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," Lily whispered, "but I'm tired too." That hurt in a completely different way. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about one bad dinner. This was years of family dynamics quietly colliding at once. "I supported you through everything," Lily continued softly. "I answered midnight calls. I listened to every breakdown. I defended you when people blamed you for the divorce." Tears filled her eyes now. But tonight was the first happy thing that's happened to me in years, and I still felt guilty talking about it. I stared at her silently, because honestly, part of me understood exactly what she meant. Divorce has a way of consuming entire families emotionally, not just marriages, and maybe without realizing it, I had become the emotional center of every room for a very long time. Still, that didn't erase how painful tonight felt. "I just wanted one evening where I didn't feel like the family tragedy," I admitted quietly. Lily's face immediately softened. "I know." And honestly, I believed her. For the first time since dinner started, this stopped feeling like intentional cruelty. It felt like emotional exhaustion from both sides. Then Lily admitted something else that completely surprised me. "I almost didn't come tonight." I frowned immediately. "Why?" She laughed weakly. "Because I knew no matter when I announced this pregnancy, someone would accuse me of stealing attention from your divorce." That hit painfully hard because deep down, I knew she was probably right. Not because I would have intentionally done that, but because grief changes family balance in ways nobody notices immediately. And suddenly, I started seeing Lily differently too. Not as the younger sister carelessly ruining my night, but as someone who quietly spent the last year shrinking her own happiness around my pain. That realization hurt. Because honestly, I never wanted my suffering to become emotional pressure on everyone else. Then quietly, Lily admitted, "I hate that I felt relieved everyone finally smiled tonight." That sentence broke something inside me. Because suddenly, I realized how emotionally heavy my divorce had become for the entire family. Not because they didn't love me, because watching someone you love fall apart slowly affects everyone around them. The bathroom fell silent for a while after that. Then finally, Lily looked at me carefully. "I really am sorry about the timing." I wiped my eyes tiredly. "And I'm sorry I made you feel guilty for being happy." The second I said that, Lily started crying again. And honestly, that's when I realized neither of us were actually fighting each other. We were both emotionally overwhelmed women trying to exist inside the same family moment for completely different reasons. Then suddenly another knock came at the bathroom door. This time it was my mother. "Natalie," she called softly. Lily and I exchanged a look instantly, because somehow we both knew the hardest conversation of the night still hadn't happened yet. Natalie finally confronts her mother about the pregnancy announcement, but the conversation forces painful family resentments to surface that nobody has admitted out loud for years. Lily opened the bathroom door first. My mother stood outside looking nervous. The second she saw both of us crying, her expression immediately changed. "Oh no," she whispered. Honestly, that reaction irritated me instantly, because suddenly she looked shocked that emotions existed at a dinner centered around my divorce. "Can we talk?" I asked quietly. My mother nodded immediately. Lily stepped aside awkwardly. "I'll go help Dad with dessert." The second she walked away, silence filled the hallway. My mother looked at me carefully like she was trying to predict how angry I actually was. And honestly, I didn't even know anymore. Mostly I felt tired. Emotionally tired. We sat down together in the small den beside the kitchen. The muffled sound of everyone else laughing in the dining room somehow made this conversation feel even lonelier. Finally, my mother spoke first. "I didn't think tonight would upset you this much." That sentence hurt immediately. Not because she meant harm, because it proved she genuinely didn't understand why this hurt. "You thought announcing a pregnancy at my divorce dinner would help?" I asked quietly. My mother sighed tiredly. "Natalie, this family has been emotionally drowning for months." I stared at her in disbelief. "So my divorce became exhausting for everyone?" She looked uncomfortable instantly. "That's not what I meant. But honestly, it kind of was. And deep down, we both knew it." My mother rubbed her forehead before continuing softly. "You've been in pain for a long time." Tears filled my eyes immediately. "I know. And we love you," she continued quickly. "But every family gathering started revolving around whether you were okay." That sentence hit hard because suddenly, it sounded exactly like what Lily said. Family dinners became quieter. Conversations became cautious. Everyone emotionally adjusted themselves around me. And honestly, I never noticed how much space my grief had started occupying. Still, that didn't make tonight hurt less. "You made me feel like everyone was relieved to finally have something happier to focus on," I whispered. My mother's face immediately fell. "Oh, sweetheart." "No," I said softly. "Just be honest." The room went painfully quiet. Then finally, my mother admitted something that completely shattered me. "I think we were relieved." I physically looked away, trying not to cry harder, because hearing your own mother say that out loud feels different than merely suspecting it. Not relieved the marriage ended. Relieved the sadness finally stopped controlling every room. And honestly, I hated that part of me understood exactly what she meant. "Do you know how hard it was watching you disappear this past year?" My mother whispered emotionally. "You stopped eating properly. You stopped laughing. Half the time you barely sounded alive." That hit unexpectedly hard, because grief feels isolating when you're inside it. You forget other people are watching too. "We didn't know how to help anymore," she admitted quietly. Tears rolled down my face silently now, because suddenly, this conversation stopped feeling like blame. It felt like emotional burnout from people who loved each other, but didn't know how to carry the weight anymore. "I never wanted to become everyone's emotional burden," I whispered. My mother immediately grabbed my hand. "You were never a burden." I looked at her carefully. "Then why did tonight feel like everyone needed relief from me?" That question visibly broke her heart. Because honestly, there was truth inside it. My mother looked down before answering quietly. "Because watching someone you love suffer for a long time becomes emotionally exhausting." The honesty hurt, but weirdly, it also felt important, because families rarely admit things like that out loud. People pretend love makes emotional exhaustion impossible, but that's not real life. Sometimes you deeply love someone and still feel drained watching them struggle endlessly. And honestly, maybe pretending otherwise is what creates resentment quietly over time. "I thought if Lily announced the pregnancy tonight," my mother admitted carefully, "it might remind everyone life was still moving forward." I laughed softly through tears. "That's exactly the problem." She frowned slightly. "My whole life just collapsed," I whispered. "And suddenly everyone's already trying to move forward emotionally before I'm even standing again." That finally seemed to fully land with her. My mother's eyes filled with tears instantly. "Oh, Natalie." For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then quietly, I admitted something I hadn't even fully realized until now. "I think I'm angry because I already feel replaceable after the divorce." My mother looked stunned. "What?" My husband moved on emotionally before the marriage even ended, I whispered. Then tonight, it felt like my family moved on from my pain too. The second I said it out loud, I realized that was the real wound underneath all of this. Not the pregnancy, not the timing. The fear that life keeps moving while you're still emotionally bleeding. My mother pulled me into a hug immediately. And honestly, for the first time that night, I finally let myself fully cry instead of trying to stay composed for everyone else. I'm sorry, she whispered repeatedly. I know. And honestly, I believed she meant it. Then quietly, she admitted one final thing that stayed with me long after the conversation ended. You're allowed to still be hurting, she whispered. But the rest of us are allowed to still be living too. That sentence hurt. But deep down, I knew it was true. And honestly, maybe accepting that was the first real step toward healing after all. After the painful family dinner, Natalie starts confronting the loneliness hiding underneath her divorce. But one unexpected conversation with her ex-husband changes the way she views her entire marriage ending. For days after the dinner, I kept replaying my mother's words in my head. You're allowed to still be hurting, but the rest of us are allowed to still be living too. Honestly, at first that sentence made me angry. Because when you're heartbroken, the world continuing normally around you feels almost offensive. People still laugh, still make plans, still celebrate things. Meanwhile, you're emotionally trying to survive 1 hour at a time. But slowly, I started realizing something painful. My family hadn't stopped loving me. They were just emotionally exhausted from carrying sadness they couldn't fix. And honestly, I was exhausted too. The divorce had consumed so much of my identity that I barely recognized myself anymore outside of it. For 15 years, I had been somebody's wife. Then suddenly, I was just alone in a quiet apartment learning how to exist again. A week after the dinner, my ex-husband David called unexpectedly. The second I saw his name on my phone, my stomach tightened. We barely spoke anymore unless it involved paperwork or logistics. Still, I answered. Hey, he said softly. His voice sounded strange. Nervous almost. What's wrong? I asked immediately. A long pause followed. Then quietly he admitted, Your mom called me. I physically sat up straighter. What? She told me family dinner got emotional. Of course she did. Honestly, part of me wanted to laugh at how impossible privacy becomes inside families after divorce. I'm fine, I said automatically. David sighed softly. That's usually your code for not fine. That sentence hit harder than I expected, because despite everything that destroyed our marriage, David still knew me better than most people. And honestly, that realization felt lonelier than comforting. I'm trying, I admitted quietly. The silence between us suddenly felt familiar. Not romantic, not painful, just familiar. Then unexpectedly, David said something that completely caught me off guard. I don't think we realized how much our divorce swallowed everyone around us too. I frowned slightly. What do you mean? He laughed weakly. My sister told me my parents started avoiding inviting people over because every conversation became about us. That stunned me for a second. Because honestly, I'd been so consumed by my own grief that I never fully considered how much emotional space our marriage collapse occupied for everyone else too. People didn't know how to help, David admitted quietly. And after a while, I think they got scared of saying the wrong thing. That explained so much. The awkwardness, the careful conversations, the emotional tension everywhere. Not because people stopped caring, because they cared so much they became afraid of making things worse. Then David said something that completely shifted the way I viewed our marriage ending. I don't think either of us realized how unhappy we were until after it ended. The room went silent around me. Because honestly, deep down, I knew he was right. Our marriage didn't explode dramatically. It slowly emotionally faded over years. Two people becoming roommates instead of partners. Two exhausted adults surviving routine instead of actually connecting anymore. And maybe that's why the divorce hurt so strangely. There wasn't one villain to hate, just grief over something quietly dying long before anyone admitted it. I kept trying to save us because I thought failure meant I didn't try hard enough, I whispered. David was quiet for a moment before answering. I know. Then softly he added, but staying unhappy forever wouldn't have been success either. That sentence stayed with me long after the call ended. Because honestly, for months I viewed my divorce like proof I failed at life somehow. Failed marriage, failed future, failed family. But maybe endings aren't always failures. Sometimes they're simply painful truths people avoided too long. That night, I sat alone in my apartment thinking about everything differently for the first time in months. Lily's pregnancy, my family's emotional exhaustion, my mother's honesty, David's words. And slowly, I realized something important. Life didn't stop because my marriage ended. And honestly, part of my pain came from expecting everyone else to emotionally stay frozen beside me while I grieved. But healing doesn't work like that. People continue living, babies are still born, families still laugh, life still moves, and somehow you slowly learn how to move with it again. A month later, Lily invited me shopping for baby clothes. At first, I almost said no. Part of me still felt fragile around all the happiness. But honestly, I was tired of letting grief isolate me from people I loved. So I went. And somewhere between tiny socks and arguing over ridiculous baby names, I laughed. A real laugh. Not forced. Not polite. Real. Lily immediately looked at me in surprise, then smiled softly. "There you are," she whispered. And honestly, that almost made me cry right there inside the store. Because for the first time in a long while, I finally felt a small piece of myself returning too. Not the version of me before divorce. That woman was gone. But maybe that wasn't entirely tragic. Maybe losing old versions of ourselves is part of surviving adulthood sometimes. And honestly, I think healing begins the moment you stop asking life to pause for your pain and start learning how to live beside it instead. Honestly, I don't think anyone in this story was truly wrong. Natalie deserved space to grieve her divorce, but her family also deserved permission to still experience happiness without feeling guilty for it. I think a lot of families quietly struggle with this exact situation after major loss or heartbreak. People want to support you with this, but eventually they also need emotional air again too. And sometimes healing starts when everyone finally becomes honest about that instead of pretending they're okay. If you were Natalie, would the pregnancy announcement have hurt you too?